We have a great treat for you today. We have Mr. John McNeely, who is CEO and principal and co-founder of Sword and Shield Enterprise Security Incorporated, who is here to give us a talk about his experience. There are quite a bit of very distinguished accomplishments, but I'm going to summarize it and just pick a few of them. Okay? He is, I think most importantly, he's our alumnus of this college. In 1990, he graduated with BS in Computer Science, and Mr. McNeely holds also an MS degree in the same field from UT Knoxville. While he was at UTC, not only he was good in the classroom, but he was a scholarship athlete on both the Mox cross-country and track teams. As a president of CEO, he is responsible for the vision and the direction, culture, and overall business growth of the company. The company was launched in 1997 with a focus on network security in the regional area. Sword and Shield has become an established company in the fast-growing cybersecurity market and is called upon by global clientele from companies in Europe, Asia, and Middle East. The company has received quite a bit of recognitions over the years. Sword and Shield was named to the top 500 and top 5,000 list of fast-growing companies for 8 years in a row, from 2006 to 2013. It was ranked every year since 2007 for being one of the largest solution providers by revenue in North America. It received business and industry awards, many of them, including Knoxville Chamber of Commerce Pinnacle Award for Small Business Excellence. Was recognized as the Cybersecurity Top 500 list each quarter by Cybersecurity Ventures as a global leading cybersecurity solution service company. And Sword and Shield is the only Tennessee-based company recognized in the Managed Security 100 category of 2017 Managed Service Provider 500. The aforementioned Cybersecurity 500 list is the global list. So he is one of 500 top cybersecurity company in the whole world. Did I mention that he's an alumnus of our college? Okay. So he's our alumnus from our college, right? So I just want you to make sure you remember that fact. He places high priority in giving back, and that's why he's here in his busy time. He's a passionate supporter of mentoring and advising the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. He's involved with many schools and organizations, in addition to being our alumnus, right? That he's associated with Career Magnet Academy, Mississippi State Community College, and UT Knoxville. He's also heavily involved with entrepreneurial community, both locally and nationally. He's a member of Global Entrepreneurs Organization. He serves as an advisor and mentor to young startup companies through Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. And he's also a member of Angel Capital Group, which is an organization that helps to connect startup business ventures with needed capital. He has over 25 years of experience in the technology industry and holds CISSP industry certification. And he saw a growing need of cyber liability and data breach insurance programs designed to cover the modern risks of doing business in a digital age. So in 2013, he launched an insurance agency, FNX LLC, to address this need of protecting data, reputation, and bottom line of many companies. So that's just a few of them, but most importantly, he is our alumnus of this college, okay? So without further ado, he's here to share his experience in the industry with the title From the Classroom to Corporation, The Adventures of a Tech CEO. So please join me in giving a warm CECS welcome to Mr. John McNeely.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Got the center, got the back, good? All right. Glad to be back in Chattanooga. Always love coming down from Knoxville to Chattanooga. I don't come down often enough, or as much as I would like to. But every time I come to Chattanooga, the memories just kind of come flooding back. It's a great experience here, good times here. Even though I was only here for like 4 years, it was a great 4 years, and I love coming back to Chattanooga. I love coming back to campus and seeing what's been happening on campus and how things have developed. So this evening, when I was asked to come speak, I said, well, what do you want to come speak about? And just kind of got some outline on that. So I thought what I would do is just kind of share a bit of my story, some of my experiences. Some of you may find it boring. Some of you may find some nugget of takeaway value. That's great. In the entrepreneurs organization that I'm in, that's really one of the things that we're about, is that many entrepreneurs have their own ideas, their own independent way of thinking. Don't tell me how to do it, but share your experiences with me, and I'll pull something out of that I could use. So that's my hope here tonight, just as I kind of go through my story. If you take away something of value, then I will have accomplished my goal. So as we get into this, I do want to let you know too that in this title, From the Classroom to a Tech CEO, when I was sitting in the classroom here at UTC, I never really saw myself as a tech CEO. That was not necessarily on my plan. But as things happen, and as you'll see in my story, opportunities come up, and life to me is a lot about pivoting and recognizing opportunity and taking risk, and you get rewarded for that. Even in failure, you can still get rewarded for that. So as we go forward, I thought what I would do is kind of start with a little bit on the company. Dr. Pat gave a nice introduction there about Sword and Shield, and we have been celebrating 20 years of business this summer. It was in 1997 that we started, and since that time, as you see on the slide here, revenue last year was around $60 million. We'll be similar to that this year. Our compounded annual growth rate over the last 5 years in our core service areas has been around 25%. So for us as a small company, where we do things organically, that's about the right percent of growth for us. That's about all that we can manage and still maintain cash flow, still keep everything balanced and in check. But it definitely keeps us busy. Client base, people are usually interested in that. Clients all across the country. This is just kind of a density plot of where a lot of our clients are. Tennessee Valley, of course, we have a lot of clients there. You'll see California, up through California. I actually have more clients in California than I do in North Carolina. The I-95 corridor, do a lot of business from New York, Boston, in that area. And what kind of businesses do we go after? That's the question I get a lot too. So for us, our sweet spot is in that mid-market. It's in that company that's about 50 million to 500 million. And like in this graph, you see there's a lot of companies in that space. And so we take this, we break it down into different MSAs, we look at each region. It's a target-rich environment. We target on these companies, but we also get Fortune 500 companies in the process. So we have a very good client base for our services. Part of the services that we offer in cybersecurity, we have a 24/7 managed security operation. We have a security testing, penetration testing team, digital forensics, a lot of the compliance areas in healthcare, retail security, PCI compliance. So really what we do is we just help businesses deal with all the threat landscape and security problems that they have. And I like to refer to it as helping to take ownership of the problem. So a lot of companies are stretched thin, especially in this mid-market group. A lot of technology people have been given additional responsibilities for security, and it's really just too much for them. We find they're always stretched to the max, and they just can't handle it. And these companies can't keep up with the evolving security threats. So it gives us a nice opportunity to come in, talk about our value, how we can help, and then we like to partner with companies and taking ownership of a lot of security problems that they have. So that's kind of what we do. Awards, over the years, we've gotten a number of awards and have been recognized by the Computer Reseller News. I think we've been on that list for about 10 years. Just recently, they started the Managed Service Provider list. We got on that list first year. As Dr. Pack mentioned, Inc. 500, Inc. 5000, Inc. 500 twice, 5000 6 times. And the Cybersecurity 500, that's an interesting one. That's Steve Morgan, who's an analyst out of San Francisco, looks across the cybersecurity landscape of different businesses, different technologies, and he came up with this list of 500 companies. And we made the list. I've talked with them and I understand more about how we made that list. So I'm happy we're there, but I'd like to know more about what you saw in us to make that list. So very proud of my team at Sword and Shield, 70 plus individuals, working hard every day, and some through the night to help keep companies secure. So just a great group of individuals. On the federal side, federal operations, again, offering cybersecurity services, we have 2 major contracts in the federal space. These are what are called GWACs. It just means that any government agency can buy off that contract. So we're fortunate as a small business to have these 2 contracts. We've had them for over 10 years, and they just recently got refreshed. And through that, we have an opportunity to sell our cybersecurity services, but also provide a lot of technology services as well through different partnerships. Some of the agencies that we serve on the federal side, the VA, DOD, Department of Interior, Department of State, some of the intelligence agencies are in there as well. There's really not a whole lot of federal agencies that we're not doing something with. And then recently, Bloomberg listed us as the top insider threat management company in the federal space, head of Booz Allen and HP, and this is just off of contracts that we've closed with some of our partners. So we're very active in the federal space, trying to help the federal government get better with security. That's a very tall task. The federal government is very bureaucratic. They like their legacy equipment, and it's very hard to bring them into the modern age and deal with the cybersecurity threats like they need to. On the community side, I do like to give back to the community. As a company that's been in business for 20 years, I feel like we have a responsibility to do that. So the ways we do that through different philanthropic giving, but I like to see more of our individuals on staff going out and helping people in the community. So we go back to the high schools, community colleges in the area and here, and just work with students on cybersecurity careers and career development, and help to train that next generation workforce. We also put on a conference. This is just the second year that we've done it. I wanted to bring a kind of a world-class conference, cybersecurity conference, to this region. Since we're headquartered in Knoxville, I have it in Knoxville. This is the second year that we've done it. Very good response, very good turnout. For this one, over 500 registered in the second year. By comparison, there's another conference in Nashville that's been doing it 17 years, and they still only have 500 people that come to that one. So I feel like we're on a good trajectory there. We bring in some really good keynote speakers. This is Charlie Miller and Chris Balasik. Their claim to fame was hacking the Jeep Cherokee and showing how car hacks are done, made the NBC Nightly News, and ever since then they've just been on a whirlwind tour of doing speaking engagements. They were working at Uber in the Advanced Security Division whenever I contracted them to come speak. Charlie then went to Didi, the Chinese competitor to Uber, and then a few months later they both got pulled up by GM, and are now working at GM in a new security group that they started. So a couple of good guys there, and Major General Brett Williams came and talked to us about nation-state hacking. He was over U.S. Cyber Command. Very good insights on kind of what's happening in that space, and we hear a lot about China, Russia, North Korea. Gave some very good insights on what's going on there. So the conference is in the second year, and I invite you all to come up in the third year. We do invite students up for the conference, and if you come up, there's like 30 breakout sessions. Adding more to that next year, including some security research sections as well. So we'd love to have you up in Knoxville. So kind of changing gears a little bit and getting to my path to Chattanooga. How did I get here? So I grew up in Bristol, Tennessee. How many know where Bristol is? Have some NASCAR fans? Okay. So I always tell people I grew up a mile from the racetrack. When the races were going on, I could hear it, had to deal with the traffic all the time. Could hear the drag races from Thunder Valley. It would shake the windows in the house. But grew up in Bristol, in that area. Didn't have a lot, just pretty average. Going through high school, nothing remarkable there. I was really a C student, and then about my junior year, I realized that wasn't going to get me too far, and so started getting more serious about my studies and what I was taking. So I just piled on the math, chemistry, physics. I was taking everything that I could, and so my senior year, still wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then my senior year, I took a computer math class, and we had a lab full of these. This is pretty legacy here. Some Apple IIs. Some of you may have seen these or programmed on before. This is some old stuff. This is around 1985, 86, whenever I was taking this class. But got into programming and just loved it. Fell in love with it. So when I wasn't studying or doing my homework, I was programming either this Apple II or my Commodore 64. I just really got into programming, and I found my passion in what I wanted to do. So while I had found my passion, what I wanted to do, I didn't really have the means to go to college. My parents were divorced. My stepfather had recently passed of cancer, and so my mother was trying to raise myself and a brother and sister, and so it wasn't the easiest of times, and we didn't have a lot of money. So again, going back to that junior year and really kind of reflecting on what I'm going to do and getting more serious about it, I was also running, and I also got more serious about that. So by my junior and senior year, I was able to win some races and become all-state in cross-country and track, and do good enough to get the attention of a coach here at UTC that came for a visit in April of '86 before I graduated, and talked to me about coming to UTC. Hadn't really thought about Chattanooga, but came down for a visit. And when I came down for a visit and met some of the staff here in the computer science department then, saw what they had going on, it's like I'm in. So I took the running and came to UTC. So that's me a long time ago. That's the before and after picture. But came to UTC and again loved it. I saw UTC as a great opportunity for me. It was a fresh start. Like I mentioned, in high school, grades were so-so. But UTC was an opportunity to really get focused and dive in, which I did. So while here, kind of taking you back a little bit, it was the age of mainframes, right? It was the 70s, the 80s, and still everything was mainframe dominated. But we were starting that transition into PCs, and people like Michael Dell were figuring out how to sell PCs directly. Bill Gates was figuring out the Microsoft operating system, and had done a great job of keeping those rights from IBM. But here it was still pretty mainframe dominated. So a lot of my time was spent in Grody Hall. That's where the computer science department was at that time. So many hours at Grody Hall, many late hours in Grody Hall, and in the lab there. So we had I think at that time it was IBM, I think it was a System 360, it could have been 370, I think it was a 360. And a big bank of 3270 terminals, workstations. I mean, these things were huge. The keyboards, the keys were like the size of $50. And so everybody's in the lab just banging away on these keyboards, and it was like, everybody was firing guns or something. It was really loud. But while I was here, great staff was here. Dr. Thompson, Chip Day, Elise Lewis, Jim DeValier, Dr. Clint Smolin. So the staff that I encountered here were great people to learn from, and really helped me a lot in my development here at UTC. So again, to me, UTC was an opportunity to learn and to grow and to make the most of that. So from UTC, let's see. I had to make a pivot as well. So while I was running at UTC and things were going fine, I was kind of torn between studying computer science and being all in with that and still trying to hang on to running and competing at the level that I needed to. So my sophomore year, I made that decision of turning in my scholarship and just going all in on computer science and in my studies. And so that sophomore year, that spring, after the indoor track season, that was it. I was done. Literally just hung up the shoes and didn't run another day for months after that. So just focused on my studies, but that also began the lean times. Because I didn't have a scholarship, I didn't have a lot of money, so everything was ramen noodles, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was pretty lean. But through that time too, all those lean times, I still learned a lot. And I think whatever you're going through, even in lean times, you can really appreciate later in life kind of what you went through during that time. It's kind of hard to see at the time of. But it really helped to increase my focus. And as I was going through this time, through the summer, taking classes, took some jobs here locally, local law firm, was a runner for them. Did that through the summer, and then the fall, I was a resident assistant. Do we have any resident assistants here? Anybody an RA? Nobody? Yeah, I don't blame you. So that was a tough job. That's not a job I would ever want again, is being responsible for managing a bunch of college age guys and gals and just the craziness that happens with that. It was not for me. But fortunately, that fall, some opportunity came in the way of a contract position, and I started work at TVA. Now, at this time, you got to go back. TVA has gone through some significant downsizing. This is the Marvin Runyon era, Harvin Marvin, as he was called. TVA had grown well beyond its capacity. Marvin Runyon came in. His job was to basically cut it. And so which he did. But that also left some opportunity for cheaper labor like myself to come in and help with some programming tasks that the research and development group needed. So that's what I did. So with that, I was able to work at TVA, start working in my career path, my career profession. Had a great opportunity there. And also met my future wife there at TVA as well. So with that, finishing out my studies here at UTC, that spring of '90 was kind of a whirlwind change. So working at TVA, things were going well. Finishing at UTC, classes are going well. So now it's like, what's next? Because I know graduation is on the horizon. So again, this is being young, being adventurous, ready to go. I'll go wherever. I remember on the job board at Grody Hall, all these positions for IBM out in San Jose. I thought, I've never been to San Jose. I'd like to go to San Jose. Positions in Australia. So I was ready to go anywhere. Through a job fair and recruiting session, an old UTC alumnus came by and interviewed me for a position for a company out in San Antonio, Texas. Well, I'd never been to San Antonio. I had never been across the Mississippi except once, and that was on a family vacation from Ohio out to Colorado in the back of a station wagon. And I was the youngest, so I got to sit in the back, so I saw the entire world kind of going away rather than actually being turned to see where we're going. So I was looking forward to go to San Antonio and see what this is about. Long story short there, went out, interviewed, it was great, loved it, accepted the position. So in '90, I went west, and in 1990 I graduated, moved 1,200 miles from home, and got married. So that's quite a bit of change in 1 year. That's I don't recommend that. But did go west and found that the Alamo is not where you might think it is if you've never been there. I was thinking it would be out in this kind of big, desolate kind of place. It's right in the middle of downtown. But I did go out to Southwest Research Institute, and I went from one campus to another. So SWRI has a 780-acre campus. So I felt right at home. I was part of a data systems group, and again, just loved it. And part of what I did when I was out there, is I absorbed. So early in career, I always recommend, be a sponge, take in everything that you can, learn from others, ask questions. That's how you grow. And also spend a lot of hours doing this. So it wasn't just an 8-hour day. These were, 10, 12, 14-hour days, kind of like being back in school. But I was trying to absorb everything that I could. And from that, I was given more opportunity. The biggest opportunity I had there was working on the Tomahawk missile. We were doing a hardware-in-the-loop simulation program. So we were taking the guided set of the Tomahawk missile, and along with some double E's and others on the project team, creating a lab environment where we could test fire the missile without having to do live fire exercises. At that time, it cost the government millions of dollars to do a live fire exercise, because if you did a live fire, a lot of times they like to have it escorted, so you had jets that would actually escort the missile, so if there was a problem, they could shoot it down. Or they just be out in the desert launching them, trying out different things. So to be able to set up a lab environment was kind of a big deal for the Navy. But it also happens that in addition to like Unix and C and all things you see there, the Tomahawk missile was also worked on by IBM. So there were some IBM components to it. Well, here at UTC, I worked on IBM mainframes. And as it turns out, some of the same applications that we were using here at UTC were also in use to manage the operational flight software of the Tomahawk missile. So guess who got assigned to that job on the project? But again, while I was there at Southwest, great experience there. But it was just for about 2 years. Because like I mentioned, I had gotten married. We were both from East Tennessee. Texas is great. We loved our time out there. But San Antonio was not East Tennessee. And so I lost the argument with my wife to stay there longer. And after about 2 years, we came back home. So we had a little homecoming. For us, Knoxville was a central location. It was also where Lockheed Martin, or at that time Martin Marietta, was running the Department of Energy Oak Ridge operations. And so we both had opportunities out there. I found mine because at Southwest Research Institute, when I was working on some microsystems, Unix systems, C, C++, a lot of network programming, that learning led to another opportunity. Because at Lockheed Martin, they were getting ready to do a big project with the FBI to help the FBI build their next generation fingerprint system. And they were going to do that on some microsystems and doing C, C++, and needed networking skills like I had. So it created another good opportunity for me to come back home. And at the time at Lockheed Martin, or I should say it was Martin Marietta, but during the time that I was there, Martin Marietta and Lockheed merged. Lockheed then bought, I think, 5 other companies, at least while I was there, other defense contractors. So in the 5 years that I was at Lockheed, we became really the largest defense contractor in the world. Which is interesting. It's a fun place to be, but you also recognize that you're really just a very small cog in a big system. So not as much upward mobility, not as much, some good opportunities, but the bureaucracy that comes with that was just more than I could bear. So while working there, also got into some network security, began doing research on that. So the 90s was an interesting time as the internet began to open up. So I remember whenever the internet was not open for commerce, it was just a research network. There would be a lot of nasty flame wars and email back and forth if there was any kind of sales or marketing on the internet. It was mainly for researchers. And so in the 90s, as this was opened up and the internet was commercialized and the World Wide Web began to take off, the topic of network security came up more and more. And I found that I was explaining the concept of firewalls and network scanners and network security more often than not on different project briefings. This was also a time whenever Kevin McNeely was doing his famous attacks, teaching us about TCP flooding and injection into or TCP hijacking. So just became fascinated with the whole world of network security and what was going on there. So had some opportunities to do some research projects in that. I was finishing my degree at UT. Was working on my master's there. And so all of that led to an opportunity where one day I had a colleague come by and just wanted to start talking about this idea about building a network security company. And so I asked him what led you to me? How'd you get to my office? I don't really know you, but happy to talk about it. Well, it turns out that I was working in the same department as his wife, and they had a Sun workstation that they were locked out of. They couldn't get root access, and asked me if I could take a look. So I went over, did a quick little hack on it that it was vulnerable to, gave them root access, and went on my way. Didn't think anything of it. So again, just a little exercise led to an opportunity, and now I'm talking with this individual about the possibility of starting a network security company. So I did leave Lockheed Martin in '97 and joined up with James Goldston. He's in that picture on the left. James was with the Air Force Information Warfare Center, also worked at NSA for a time. But we had spent months talking about this idea of a network security company. We just didn't see that there was a lot of competition out there. There were some startups that were getting into that space, but we thought it'd be a good time for us to at least try. So we stepped out, did that, and like I say there, we just started on some guts and passion. So we're both technical individuals, both have technical degrees. This is one place where when I was at UTC, again, my education came back to greatly help me in starting a company. So at the time that I was going to school here in computer science, they were closely aligned with the business school, so it was almost like a computer science business information type of degree. So in addition to my computer science and math courses, I was also taking accounting, business management, operations research, and some classes like that. So those business classes actually became very helpful whenever we were starting up this company. The fax machine there is iconic for us. We actually still have it. Whenever James and I started, we were in a two-story garage, and that fax machine sat between us, and that's where our orders came in on. So you'd find us on different days, taking orders off of it. You'd find us on different days kneeling, praying over this thing for something to come in. It was kind of feast or famine on business in the startup days. But we also started with an idea of, well, companies need information security policies and strategies. We need to help them with that. But this was a quick lesson on whatever you think you're going to deliver to the customer, listen, because they're going to tell you that they need something else. So back at this time, the internet's taking off, and the customers weren't interested in getting a firewall set up between their business and the internet. And also, can we do some security testing to see if we can find any way that hackers can get in? So guess what? We quickly pivoted, and that's the services that we offered. We also had some good help in starting up on mentoring, as any startup business needs. At that time, in the Knoxville, Oak Ridge area, Tech 2020 was an organization that offered some mentoring for us. Great organization. Unfortunately, they're not around now. Croat was an organization that we got some of our first business loans from. And let me tell you, back in the 90s, trying to go to a bank and explain to a bank your business and business model and why you need a loan, and you're having to explain to the loan officers what internet security is and what firewalls are. It was just a different time. It was very hard to do. So thankfully, we had an organization that was helping small businesses like ours. I think we were the only company that they loaned money to that we actually paid back the loan in full. After the first year of business, James and I, we survived that first year. And year two, recognizing that we needed some help, we needed to add to the team, we had an opportunity to bring in Will Henderson. And Will had a very extensive business background, had just retired from US Internet. It was a startup ISP in Knoxville. And from that, that formed the three partners of the company. Kind of in the first 10 years, it was about building our client base. We were able to build a lot of credibility early on. James and I both had government connections in the contracting world, and were able to get some good contracts early on. Managing our cash flow, always a challenge in a small business, but we were able to do that. And dealing with those different events, 9/11, I remember a lot of companies, like ours, went out of business almost overnight. During that time, that's whenever the government really stopped spending and shifted priority. So we had some other peer businesses that went out of business. And also the dot-com bubble. That took about 5 years to recover from that. But the biggest thing that we had, and you look at starting a business and you have your partners, you don't expect an event like a partner death. And unfortunately, that's what we had. James was diagnosed with cancer in 2003. Fought through that, went to remission, but unfortunately it came back, and it came back with a vengeance. And so we lost our business partner in 2006. So that's a very, very difficult time for a company to go through, emotionally, but also, somebody that's been a leader in the company. How do you survive through that? It's something that we had to work very hard for and work through. But thankfully we were able to do that, and a lot of our team, did very well through that whole transition. Because with that, Will Henderson was the CEO. I was the Chief Technology Officer. James was President. Whenever James passed, I took over the President role. And then, going through 2007, Will and I talked about his retirement, because he was nearing retirement age, and that I would take over as CEO. So moving forward into 2008, that January, that's whenever I officially became CEO of Sword & Shield, just in time for the Great Recession. So we still joke about that. Will tells me that, well, if it had been like it was, you'd think it was just too easy. So you had to have a challenge, and that we did. So just like all the other companies in the States and around the world, we dealt with the Great Recession for a period of time. Thankfully, through all of that, we maintained profitability. We had a very diverse portfolio of services and clients that we were handling. And so while we took a hit, just like everybody else did, it is something that we were able to work through. And bring us up to 2017, whereas I'd shown earlier that we've had that compounded annual growth rate of 25%, so things have been actually doing very well. For me, that was one of the most stressful times of my life, trying to navigate the company through this Great Recession. I'm confident that I've lost a few years of my life from all the stress through all of that, but I still wouldn't trade it. It was worth it going through it. So talk a little bit about the cybersecurity market, kind of where we are, what the opportunities are. There's a lot I can go into here. I'm not going to give you some long, threat briefing on all the bad things that are happening, because bad things are happening. So you hear enough about what Russia and China are doing. You hear enough about ransomware. That's what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. I'm happy to answer any questions on those at the end. But I wanted to kind of look more at what the opportunity is for everybody in this room. And one of the things that we look at is on the career side. And I can tell you that as an employer, there's never been a harder time of finding skilled and trained cybersecurity professionals at all ends of the spectrum, from the interns to the entry level, all the way to senior. It's a very good market right now for those individuals looking to go into cybersecurity. And this is one graph I'll show you. Hopefully you can still read that up in the back. Hopefully it's not too small. But what this shows is, and this is on cyberseek.org, if you want to look it up yourself. They have an interactive map, some other tools on that site. And what they track is the number of cybersecurity jobs that are open. And you'll see, I think there's 299,000 that are currently open there. Different colors on the states give you different density. Tennessee has, I think, just over 5,000 open positions. But if you look around Tennessee, Georgia has around 15,000, or actually closer to 20,000. North Carolina is around 15, and then Virginia is at 35,000 open positions that they can't fill. So this is the state that we're in right now. There is a shortage. You hear about a shortage. There is a shortage of skilled workers. It's one of the reasons why I'm out working from the high school level up, is to get people interested in cybersecurity careers and continue to work on that pipeline. It's a very good industry. It's going to be around for a long time. These threats are not going away, and you can make a very good career in a cybersecurity career if you have an interest. And if you have an interest in starting a business, it's also a very good time to be in the cybersecurity space. This was taken from a group that I talked with a good bit, Momentum Partners out of San Francisco. They cover the cybersecurity market, and what you see on this slide is that there were about $7.8 billion in M&A volume year to date. That includes full buyout, that includes debt equity financing. So it's a very, very robust time. And I can tell you, I get no less than 10 to 15 calls every week about my company. And I'm always curious how these investors find my company. But it's a very busy time in the cyberspace right now. A lot of these are tech companies. A lot of these are the companies that started with that kernel of an idea about doing security a little bit differently, about a way of building a better widget. And so they're not trying to be the next Symantec or RSA or IBM, but they're trying to build that core technology that somebody will be interested in. Because the larger companies, they can't do enough R&D on their own to maintain the pace that's currently out there. So they're always looking for that smaller company that's got that great idea, they built a good product, but they're open to being acquired. So a lot going on in the cyberspace. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about business and stepping out and doing something like that, either while you're in school or after, I always say, start a business while you're in school. There's no reason you can't do that. You don't have to wait till you graduate. Take that idea and get it started. But recognize that it is a roller coaster ride. At least that's what I've found. And I always like to show this slide because it puts a little bit of reality on it. This is from Scaling Up. And what you see is that there's around 28 million firms in the U.S. And that first step is only 4% of those 28 million ever make it above $1 million in revenue. So you let that sink in for a minute. There's only 4% of that 28 million that make it over the 1 million threshold. And then it goes down from there. From there, only 1 in 10 make it up to the $10 million mark. So as you see, it keeps getting smaller the higher you go. To that top end there, only 17,000 companies in the U.S. are greater than 500 million, according to this chart. So that first year of business is critical. That's the one where it's kind of the make or break. If you can make it past that first year, very good chance you can make it to years 2 and 3. But the difficulty comes in figuring out how to scale up your business. A lot of mentoring that I do and talking with startups is, what's your exit? So have you even talked about your exit or how big you want to be? Because I see plenty of businesses that they're working, they've got that idea, they want to step out, which is great, but how big do you want this to be? Because you can build a business around yourself, which is fine, but no one's going to want to buy it. So what is your business without you? That's one of the questions I always ask myself, is what is my business without me? And if you want to be able to build something and grow it and have it survive, but also maybe have it as an acquisition opportunity later, what is your business without you? So a few other lessons learned from me that I wish I had known before I got into all this. I wish I had read the E-Myth. E-Myth is a great book by Gerber, and it really does kind of talk about what an entrepreneur is. I mean, we see Elon Musk, we see Zuckerberg, we see these guys, right? That's a very small percentage of individuals. Most of your entrepreneurs are people that are already working, they're tired of the job that they have, and they want to step out and they want to do something different. this book addresses that. It's a really good, reflective book looking at like who you are, what your style is, understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are. Puts a whole lot of perspective on it, on those things. I always like to build a team and not a rock star. Again, that's what's your business without you. Your equity. So your equity is like gold. And the interesting thing in the startup is that you have equity, but it's worth nothing. So you have a company, you have shares. It's not really worth anything, but yeah, you can still leverage that to bring people in. You can use equity or the promise of that equity being of value in the future as something to bring people in, share your idea, share your passion, and be a part of that build-up. Place to be careful is whenever you're working on investments is giving too much of that equity away at the beginning. So once you give it away, you can't get it back. So that's whenever we get into the whole aspect of debt financing, equity financing, and there's a whole lot more we could go into there. I won't do that now, but that's what your entrepreneur centers are for. They're there to help you mentor and advise through that process. Learn to say no. When you start up and you start getting desperate, whenever you're not getting the clients that you think you should, or your product's not getting the adoption that you should, you start thinking of other things and other ways. You start getting distracted, and you kind of get into this little death spiral whenever you start to do that. So you have to know what you're going to do, what you're going to build, what you're going to be focused on, and say no to the other things. It's a hard thing to do, but that's what most companies that are successful wind up doing that. The art of delegation. This is a big one for me, especially as you grow. When you bring people on into your company, you're paying them to do something, not come in and just dump problems on you. So I always learn the art of delegation about carving up those roles and responsibilities. And if somebody does have a problem, the solution of 3. Don't bring me the problem, bring me 3 solutions to the problem. When you start as an individual or a 2-person company, this is an interesting process because basically as you form the nucleus of the company, everybody that you hire, you're taking something that you've been doing, carving that off, and handing it to them. That sounds easy. That's actually a difficult process, and it's actually hard for some owners to let go. And so they'll let go, but then they'll pull it back. There's this kind of back and forth, and it's just extremely inefficient and can actually wind up harming the company. In the company, your employees will both amaze you and disappoint you, and I've experienced both. We have some great people doing great things. Over the years, I've had some people just do some really stupid things as well. They're no longer with the company. But that's the other thing that you find out too, is you got to be really careful in your hiring, selective in your hiring, and bring in the right people. Lastly, the perfection issue. So I'm one of those that, especially when I was programming, no bugs. I can't have any bugs in my program. So I was always very meticulous about the software that I wrote. They kind of carried over into business, which wasn't as good because I was seeking perfection in every aspect, and you can't have that. You just become paralyzed. So you really have to look for clarity. What's the information that I need now to make the next decision to move forward? And focus on the clarity rather than the certainty, that 100%. I got to wait till I have all this data before I can make a decision. You just can't do that in business. So those are a few of my lessons learned over the years. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here and say thank you. Again, that was kind of a quick trip through my experiences and from startup at Sword and Shield to time here at UTC. So I'll take any questions that you might have. Go ahead.
Did Russia hack the election?
Did Russia hack the election?
Yeah.
Russia did hacking on the election. We've already heard publicly about Facebook, the Facebook ads. We know that Russia was very active in hacking the DNC server. So yeah, they were very active in that, but the question of did they actually hack enough to change the outcome? Don't know about that one. But I will say too, we do understand that we've been doing this to them as well for years, right? So it should be no surprise that Russia's hacking us, we hack Russia as well. This has been going on since the Cold War, it's just the tools are new. So the thing with Russia is that the biggest thing, they're not trying to get out and find like each individual district and try to influence the vote. They just want to cause discord. Good question. What else?
How do you deal with ransomware?
How do you deal with ransomware? Well, we try not to let it in to begin with. Start with that. But that's a hard thing because a lot of ransomware, the vectors is through like email, phishing attempts. So that comes back to people making bad decisions about what they click on. And that's what we find is that 3 out of 4 times that's how it's getting into an organization. So we work on the awareness side, helping people understand email security and what they should be looking for, along with some technical controls to help filter things out. But then on the managed services side, what we do is we're always monitoring. So whenever we see ransomware begin to outbreak, we kind of quickly work to contain and isolate before it spreads too far. But it's a big market. People are making a lot of money on it, so it's going to be around for a while too. Good question. What else?
Do you think that like self-driving cars pose a pretty large security risk?
They can, and Charlie Chris Miller would say that they very well could. There's a lot of things in that. So in vehicles, it's a little different because that industry is very aware of the production cycle and changes to car technology. That's why it takes years for things to get introduced and to come out. So they're a little more attuned to that. In general, though, what I say is that security always lags innovation, especially in consumer products. Security always lags innovation. So whatever the next product is that's coming out, the time to market, to get that product to market, the pressures for that usually cost something in security to get it out. And part of that's because of us. It's our buying habits. I mean, do you want to wait on the next Apple phone so they get all the security right? Or just give me the features and we'll work out the security after the fact. So security tends to lag innovation. On autonomous cars, there's still a lot of unknown there because with the systems that are being built and then how those systems will also interact, I mean, we're kind of building a big experiment on the fly here, right? So look for some interesting things there. So I prefer to have my hands on the steering wheel. Just personal preference. Good question. What else?
How many threats do you get as a company?
How many what? I'm sorry?
Threats, hacking threats as a company. Do you know what I get?
Sorry, I still didn't get that.
Hacking threats for your own company?
Hacking threats.
Hacking threats?
Yes.
How many hacking threats?
Do you monitor? Yes. For your company?
For my company, how many hacking threats do we see?
Yes. If any.
I
mean, you are there to provide security to other companies, right?
Right.
So do you...
Oh, how many are coming against us?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we see that every day. Yeah, we get stuff every day. But a lot of it is just the typical recon stuff. It's your botnet probes. So there's like different layers to it, right? So there's the scanning that goes on that's just reconnaissance because somebody out there is trying to find any kind of vulnerability that you may have. And then, so what happens is, like on the black market, is scanning is done, machines are compromised, but then those machines that are compromised are kind of pulled together, and those can be sold as a bundle on the black market, and just kind of goes on from there. It's a pretty interesting system. But for us, we get scans every day, probes every day. We'll get social engineering from time to time, people trying to call in, doing different things. My favorite ones, though, are the current business email compromise or CEO whaling. So I get those, which is really good. So my accounting staff will get those. It's like the email from me that says, hey, we got this transaction. I need you to wire transfer, $100,000 to this account. Those are always fun. So we get those and we kind of laugh about them. The best one was to my VP of Finance. He got an email from me that said, hey Chris, are you on your desk? So we still talk about, Chris, are you on your desk today? I need something. So we see a lot of that though. We see a lot of phishing attempts. that come in against us, just like our customers. Good question. Other questions?
So one last
Sure.
question. Internet of Things, right? So now almost all our homes are going to be wired, right? As a security expert, what advice do you give? Where you can turn on stuff, coffee maker, you can basically turn on anything through the internet. How's
Yeah, other than we're screwed, I mean, that's, yeah, when your refrigerator starts talking to the car, and I mean, this all the stuff is gonna go on. Yeah, Internet of Things is, I mean, it's here, it's growing, and I think what can we do? A big part of that is, as consumers, is demanding that the companies that are producing these products are building security in. Because we're still seeing too many things that are coming out that are vulnerable. Default admin passwords, I mean, they're still not taking it serious. It's like, what do we have to do to get companies to take this serious? So I think as consumers, we have to have some advocacy there of, as we build out the Internet of Things, there has to be security baked in. Because there's really no government authority right now that's in charge of that. It's in pockets, but it's just not happening. So again, going back to time to market, companies will keep building product, getting it out there, and build security after the fact. And then we get to deal with all the repercussions of that.
Any others? Let's give Mr. McNeely a